Kareem, welcome to the program. Your sense on how these talks are going, given all these heavy hitters have now arrived. We've got U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff there, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner is there. We've got Israel's chief negotiator is there, along with envoys from Turkey and Qatar. Is it your sense that perhaps things at least are moving in the right direction?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And it's not only that, we also have the Egyptian President Sisi, put out an invitation to President Trump in order to arrive at the resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh in order to, be present and be there for the signing if there is a ceremony, if the ceasefire goes into effect. But quite honestly, Asieh, I'm usually an optimist, and in this issue, I'm not. I don't really think that a sustained ceasefire is going to go into effect. There's a bunch of sticking points out there that without resolving them, it's just not going to lead anywhere. We're talking about a plan, a 20-point plan that is vague at best. It has a lot of things that it needs to get developed. And also, if it goes into effect again, I don't think it's going to sustain. Same like what we've seen in March when Israel broke the ceasefire as well.
Well, you talk about sticking points. Let's talk about some of them. Netanyahu has signaled there would not be a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, something Hamas has long demanded. The plan vaguely, President Trump's 20-point plan, vaguely mentions the path towards the recognition of a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has been clear that is not going to happen, and Hamas has not agreed to disarm. So how do you bridge the differences? These are very, very tricky and complicated issues.
Precisely. I mean, at the end of the day, the background, the big picture here is that Netanyahu's, the Israeli Prime Minister's political survival really is just tied to this war. We're talking about a major corruption trial that awaits him if the war is to end, and it would probably resume the day after or so. And the main sticking points to your point, first of all, as you said, is Israeli withdrawal. Hamas has been adamant that there should be an Israeli full withdrawal from Gaza, and the maps that the White House has put out, first of all, it shows that in the third stage, Israel would maintain control over 15% of Gaza, what they call, quote unquote, the security perimeter. But also, we need to think of the hostage release structure. The main bargaining chip in Hamas's pocket is essentially the hostages that remain there, the 48, 20 of which are assumed to be or presumed to be alive. If they are to release the 48 hostages in the first 72 hours, as President Trump has proposed, they essentially lose that bargaining chip. And what would guarantee for them that Israel would withdraw, that they would get recognition of a Palestinian state and establishment of a Palestinian state, all that is still in the air. And also, on top of that, the disarmament, as you said, Hamas also has been adamant that it would not disarm until there is a Palestinian state established. All those are points that, yes, there is the optimism in the air. Turkey is there by way of the chief of the intelligence. The Egyptian president is inviting President Trump, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff. All that still does not handle or deal with the main sticking points head to head.
And amid all these negotiations and amid continued Israeli strikes on Gaza, Israel's far-right minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, decides it's a good idea to pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem. Of course, he's done this before, but what do you make of the timing? With a lot of critics are saying he's basically trying to sabotage the negotiations.
It's very strategic, Asieh. I mean, we've seen also Smotrich coming out and talking about a real estate bonanza in Gaza, which also is related to what was mentioned before, starting with Jared Kushner last year and also President Trump saying, Gaza is to be turned into the Riviera of the Middle East. So to visit it today is very strategic and well-timed, and it also is a great provocation. This is a decades-long agreement that non-Muslims are not to pray at the Aqsa compound, which is essentially what he did today, and he called for a complete victory in Gaza. So, I mean, this goes back to the idea of Netanyahu's political survival. There is that coalition that without Ben-Gvir, without Smotrich, without their political bloc, Netanyahu's political survival is at stake. And for them to see them coming out publicly doing those actions, whether it's rhetorical or in action, as we've seen at the Aqsa compound, really does not help create an
Yeah.
environment of optimism when it comes to negotiations in Sharm el-Sheikh.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Kareem El Damanhoury, thank you so much.